Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and today I'm coming to you with a video that I think kind of needs to be made. I'm going to bring to you a field strip and cleaning video of one of my favorite PCCs, or pistol caliber carbines. This is my registered SBR Brugger Thomet B&T APC45. This is the first generation one of these. It has the old flip-up cheap iron sights, not like the Pro version that they have now. This is one of the first ones that I'm aware of that were imported into the United States when B&T kind of began their production and importing them. And so I got this to the range to review one of the optics that I recently did that Matt, one of my subscribers, let me borrow, the Trigicon MRO green dot. And so since I had some range time, this gun needs to be cleaned and it needs to be field stripped. So I thought I'd put it all on camera. So let's do that now. Alright, so the first part of this video is just going to be the field strip of this gun. Now, this is very similar to kind of the setup you'll have in an AR-15, but it's not exactly the same. So we do have two pins that hold the lower receiver onto the upper receiver, and unlike an AR-15, the stock is actually a separate piece and not part of the upper or the lower. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is drop the magazine, make sure there's no ammunition, and of course check the chamber, and it looks like we are good. Okay, so then you want to turn the gun over to this side, and you're going to push the pins through from the left side to the right side. Sometimes you can do this with just your fingers. I think I'll be lucky today. Sometimes you cannot. So, yep, it's not going to pull out. Because these pins are in here kind of tough. They're the little detents that are in the lower receiver can be a little bit fidgety. Sometimes you can just use like a little punch. In this case, I'm just going to use the side of a nylon brush here. I can simply just push those through, just like that. Come on the other side and just pull those pins. Now, unlike an AR-15 that has a hinge, you can't hinge the lower receiver because the stock is flat against the lower. So once you get both of the pins off, the lower receiver will simply just come off the bottom of the gun, like such. Now, in order to get the stock off, you're going to push down from the stock plate, and then you can pull it out. So you're going to pull down, let's see here, just like that, and then it comes straight out the back. And here we have the hydraulic buffer that's built into the stock. To get the bolt carrier out, you simply now push the charging handle back to the round notch in the back, and that will allow you to pull out the charging handle after you have removed the recoil spring. Then that simply comes out, and then the bolt is removed. And that's it. That is all you have to do to field strip this gun to clean it. Obviously, putting the gun back together is just the opposite of disassembly. So you're going to want to put the bolt back into the upper receiver. Make sure that you get the hole lined up right there at the circle cutout. You can now insert your charging handle. You can push the bolt forward if you'd like. Reinsert the recoil spring as such. Now, I find this is actually the trickiest part here of reassembly, is putting the stock on. You got to make sure you don't put it in straight. You got to bring it down just a little bit, push it in, and then it will snap up. So you, just like that. That can be a little bit tricky if you're not used to the B&T style of disassembly. Then obviously your lower receiver just needs to line up with those pinholes in the upper. Get all of that lined up here, just like that, and then just push those pins through, and then your magazine, and then of course check for function. Yep, it holds back on the last round there. And let me just the magazine, not the magazine, the bolt. There you go. So there you go, a field strip of the B&T APC45. This is the first generation, but the newer generations, the Pro Series, will disassemble the same way. The charging handles will be just a little bit different because they can fold over, but everything else mechanically is exactly the same. And that's it. So there is the field strip. So now let's clean this thing. Alright, so the supplies I'm going to need to clean this. I'm going to use a nylon brush, the same one I used to help get my pins out when I did the field strip. I like to use this little Glock cleaning tool because I'm going to run some patches through the little eyelet in it. I'm going to use this little boar brush here. I believe this is actually a Glock nylon brush, and this is just in a rod that I picked up somewhere. I can't remember if it was like Shields or Cabela's or something like that. It just works with the, or it's the same thread size as those Glock brushes. I'm going to use some M Pro 7 gun cleaner. I prefer to use gun cleaner versus CLP because I will oil the gun later with a different product. I will not use, normally I like to use the Lucas gun oil. This is a little bit more viscous of a gun oil. However, because the tolerances in the B&T products are machined so small, I like to use a lighter oil, and for this time I'm just going to use the I guess standard like gun oil. This is a very thin, kind of a low viscosity gun oil. And as I said before, it's just because when I use the Lucas stuff, it's a little bit too thick and I feel like it gums up the bolt just a tad. So I use a thinner gun oil. And at the very end, I might use a little bit of frog lube for the inside of the upper receiver. So that's it. Oh yeah, also need some Q-tips. That's it. So that's all I'm going to need to clean this APC45. So let's start with the magazine. Alright, so we're going to start by cleaning the magazine here. This is a part that I always recommend everybody clean. At least just wipe it down because I think that over a long period of time you can get a lot of just gunk and carbon buildup in there just from the chamber, and I think that possibly over time you could get some malfunctions if it obstructed the follower or caused it to slip or stick or any of that kind of stuff. So it's something really easy to do. Just wipe down the magazine. If you have a magazine that can be easily disassembled, you can do that as well to get inside of the body. This one is a little bit more complicated. You got to pinch these little legs together. I'm not going to do that today, but I'd like to wipe down the outside of the magazine body here, get into the feed lips, and if I have time, I'll take Q-tips and I'll go ahead and clean the inside of the magazine there as well. It just takes a few minutes, but what do they say? An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So there you go. And that's it. Magazine is clean. Alright, so the APC series of firearms from B&T is very, very simple in the way that it is built. Because it is just direct blowback, there is no rotating bolt or anything. The bolt and the bolt carrier are all just one piece. There's not really much or many complicated moving parts in the gun. So there's a few things that we can simply just wipe down before we get into the two parts that are the hardest to clean, which is the bolt carrier and the upper. You have your charging handle. I always just wipe this down. Don't need any special care or maintenance. That's really easy there. Set that aside. And of course, I always wipe down the recoil spring. Same reason I wipe down the magazine. I'm not saying you have to disassemble it or anything. Just kind of wipe it down. Just keep all the internal components of the gun clean and looking nice. And I think it will last you a long time. And then last but not least, we got the stock here. This doesn't really get a lot of dirt on it because it's so far away from the chamber. So I just kind of wipe it down. Wipe down the hydraulic buffer here, which is something that's really important in the B&T guns and really helps mitigate the recoil. So I'll just take a little time here, just kind of wipe that down. Usually that's all it needs. So those are the three simplest parts of the gun to clean. So now let's do the lower receiver. Alright, so next up we got the lower receiver. Usually this thing does not get that dirty. All you really got to do is just take a cloth, clean out around the magazine well here. That's where you're going to get most of any dirt that would get on it. kind of wipe that down, wipe around the pins, maybe wipe down the outside, whatever you like. Get down into all the little crevices. Clean off the magazine catch. That's usually about all you have to do there. If you want to get a little bit more OCD, like me, you can take some Q-tips and just get down into the trigger group. This is exactly like cleaning an AR-15 lower receiver. That's all that is, and as you can see, I'm getting a little dirt out of there. Not much. And that's it. And then all I'm going to do now is just take a little bit of gun oil. I'm going to oil the springs right here, around the trigger. And I will also hit the disconnector and the sear surfaces with a little bit of oil as well. And that's it. That's all your lower receiver needs. Pretty easy. All right, so let's move on to the bolt. All right, so next up is probably the dirtiest part of the gun, which is the bolt. Under normal circumstances, you'll just take a little bit of gun cleaner and your nylon brush, spray it down with gun cleaner, and then just scrub the bolt. I like to go one extra step. I always like to take out the firing pin and clean out the channel. It is completely unnecessary, but I like to do it as well. This is going to be a little bit complicated if you're not used to doing this. You're going to need 2 pins. This is a larger one here. I'm using a 3/8 or a 5mm punch here. And I'm sorry, a 3/18 is punch, not a 3/8. And this is like a standard Glock disassembly tool here. So what you got to do is there's a pin that only goes one way. You can see how there's a larger side of the pin here, smaller side of the pin here, which is recessed. And so the way that you get this out essentially is you put the bolt on its back, and you got to take the larger punch, push in on the firing pin, which will release the tension on the spring, and then with the other pin you can then push out this pin here, and that's it. Now when you release the firing pin, make sure it doesn't go flying across the room, and also pay attention to its orientation because there are a few cutouts in it. So I will release the pressure slowly as such. You can pull it straight out, and then with the bolt carrier upside down, I'll show you here in a second, you'll notice that there is some little cutouts here. And if I turn it to the side, you'll notice that there is a little cutout here on the top. And that is where the pin will go through. So you have to make sure that is facing to the top of the bolt, or in this case it'd be upside down. And that's it. So then all you have to do is clean the bolt off the exact same way I told you a second ago. So I'll just wipe down these parts here, the firing pin, like that, the pin itself that holds in the firing pin, and the spring. Set that aside. Then I'll just take my gun cleaner and just go over the entire bolt, the bolt face, and I'll even put some into the recoil spring hole there. Then just take my brush and just brush the whole bolt down. Since it's just one piece, you don't have to worry about taking out a bolt. There's no extra steps in this. So this is a lot easier than an AR-15, but because it is direct blowback, you do get a little bit more gunk in it. And then I like to get the bolt face really good here. Get any of the fouling out from there. Normally I don't take out the extractor, but you can. There's a roll pin that is right here that you can punch through, and it goes through, where is it? Yeah, it's a roll pin that goes through this side over here. And that's it. So I'll just clean that bolt face off, and I'll take my brush and I'll clean out where the recoil spring goes as well. And that's it. I know that's a little bit overkill for most people there, but for me, it's fine. And I'll just then wipe down the outside of the bolt carrier with a rag, and you should be good to go here. And that should be it. Piece of cake. And then we will reassemble this when we put the whole gun back together. So there it is, one clean B&T bolt. Now let's do the upper receiver. Alright, so the last part of the cleaning here is going to be the upper receiver. This is actually really easy to clean. It's just a monolithic aluminum upper receiver and pretty much a barrel. So all you gotta really clean is the barrel, the chamber, the feed lips, and as much of the inside of the receiver as you'd like. The hardest thing is to get around the rails, which you can see right here. So if you want to get on top of the rails and underneath, it can be a little bit tricky to get up in there, but it's not too bad with brushes and all that. So, as I said, the main thing is just to get the bore. I'm not going to put everything on film here, but just talk about what I do. So I'm just going to take some gun cleaner here, get all into the upper receiver, put some here in the back, and of course, get some through the barrel here, and just kind of let it soak in for just a moment. Let that set, and so I'm going to use the Glock cleaning brush here on this rod. The barrel, I believe, is only like 7 or 8 inches long, so this should be plenty of distance here. And being 45 caliber, I think this is really like a 40 caliber brush. It's really easy to go through there. I'll run this through there a few times. Just make sure I get all of the gunk out of the rifling. That should be that. Then I will take my nylon brush here and just kind of clean out the inside, get around the rails and the ejector, come in from the back, clean all that off. And that should be it for most people. I might clean the feed lips there from this side, and that would be it. At this point, I'll take my dirty rag and simply just wipe everything out. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I've been at this now for a few minutes, just wiping everything down. I think it's looking really good. Really happy with how much stuff I got out of that receiver. One of the last things I'll do here is take that Glock cleaning tool I told you about before, and I'll just take a little paper towel, square about that big, just kind of roll it up, go through the eyelet of the tool here, and I will just go through the bore like such. And that's it. And that is the upper receiver completely clean. So now let's put the whole gun back together. Alright, so let's put this gun back together. The only thing I've done off camera is I did use a little frog lube. I heated it up with a hairdryer and put just a very thin coat inside of the upper receiver and on the bolt. And that is all I've done. So, to start here, I'm going to put the bolt back together first. We got to put that firing pin back in there. So we'll take the firing pin spring, and this pin here. And so you got to remember, you got to put this little notch. If the bolt is upside down like this, that has to go down, because that is where the pin will go through. So make sure that is facing downward, or as close to downward as you can get. I'll very slowly put it in there, and then I should be able to compress the spring and push in the pin from this side right here. So I'll kind of get that pin started, and I will push in the firing pin to a certain point, and there it goes. And that's it. Piece of cake. I know for some people they'll struggle with that, but I've done it enough that it's not really a big deal for me. Alright, so next up, I will get just the rag out. I'll wipe it down one more time, and I'm going to put a little bit of the lubricant on the rails here on the bolt. So the contact surfaces are going to be right here in this little ridge where the rails inside of the upper are going to run. So I'll just put a little bit of oil. I like to use a lot on this because there's no other mechanism, and it runs along the entire rail of the gun, or pretty much the entire length of the gun. So there's a lot of places in there that may have some friction. I might even do it here on the rails in here as well. Just put a few drops. I know people are going to say, oh, that's a lot, but this gun does have a lot of friction because of the tight tolerances. All right, so then I'm just going to drop the bolt into the gun. Moves nice and perfect. And the one thing about the B&T guns that are amazing to me is those bolts seem, or they feel like they run on ball bearings. These guns are just so well machined. That's why they're so expensive. All right, we're going to put the recoil spring back in there. Then we're going to put the stock back on. And like before in the field strip part of the video, you start it low, you push it in, and then it should slide up. And there it is. All right. I just realized I made a mistake. I might as well just go ahead and leave this in here. You got the charging handle. My bad. All right, that's not really a big deal. All right, pull out that recoil spring, drop that in, and there we go. So there's a blooper. I guess I'm just going to leave in because I don't want to film the rest of it. Let's put that stock back in, and up it goes. All right, so there we go. And by the way, the charging handle is reversible. I run the APC45 with the handle on the right side, but you can run it on the left if that's what you like. And then we got our lower receiver here. Let me pull the pins out. I should probably do this from the other side for the camera. All right. And then make sure all of that goes together, all lines up as it should. And maybe I should pull the hammer back there. Put the gun on safe. All right. And there we go. And then those pins should just slide right in the gun. And we should be good to go. Check it for function there. Put the magazine in. And we are good to go. Kind of like that. Well, there we go. So that is my video on field stripping and how I clean the APC45. And you even got to see a little bit of bloopers there. Me struggle with a little bit. So there you go. So let me know if you have any questions, and I hope this helps somebody out there, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. All right, so let me know if you have any questions, and as always, thanks for watching.